You're listening to The Sidecar Show, presented by Slow Phil, brought to you by Steve English, the guy who's keeping the slidey community alive. Get involved if you have news or announcements, or if you just want to have your say. Email slowphil@steveenglish.com or call Slow Phil direct on 077 307 84975. Now just relax and enjoy the show.
I'm Slow Phil and it's the all new Sidecar Show. Show 15, kids. Can you believe it? 15 weeks I've been doing this. I'm worn out. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I certainly am. Great show. Packed. Absolutely packed. From Darley Moor last weekend. A great meeting. The Stars of Darley. It's well worth going. If you've never gone, you've missed a great show. We're going now to listen to an interview I made with Dave Saunders. A lot of you will know Dave from Derby. Had a little bit of a mishap at the TT, but he's on his way back, kids. Here we go. So, we're at Darley Moor. I'm speaking to Dave Saunders. Dave, tell me what's happened to you this year.
I smashed myself up at the Isle of Man, the TT. Unfortunately, I smashed somebody else up at the same time. My passenger, Anne Garnish.
Lovely Anne, Inky Anne, but she wasn't too badly damaged, was she?
Not too badly, no. Very, very battered and bruised. The pair of us were black from head to toe.
Yeah. And you had a little bit of time in hospital as well, didn't you?
Yeah, 11 days in total.
Yeah.
9 days in the Isle of Man and 2 days back home in Derby.
Yeah. So what's the story? How did all that happen to you?
Well, we were out in practice on the Thursday night. We hadn't had a good time practicing. We unfortunately broke down on the first day of practice. On the Saturday, the radiator cap came off. Never done it before.
Oh, that's right. I heard that. Yes.
We lost a bit of water. Somebody kindly gave us water. We were
from a house.
Yeah, we were up and running.
Yeah.
Within, I guess, 3, maybe 4 minutes, but we weren't allowed to rejoin.
They wouldn't allow you to rejoin, no.
In fact, they wouldn't even let us drive back, but when everything was finished. But
so anyway. that ruined that session for you.
Yeah, and then of course on the next practice was the Monday, and sadly the Japanese solo rider got killed.
That's right.
So our practice was cancelled that night. Tuesday it threw it down, so cancelled again. Wednesday we did get out, but it was a very wet night. It was horrendous on the second lap. When we came through Kirkmichael, without exaggerating, you could have paddled a canoe down the road.
Yeah.
It was 4 inches deep.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a good night, and it was an untimed practice that night. So on the Thursday, officially, the rules stated, but by Wednesday night we'd have had to have done 3 laps, well we hadn't.
Yeah.
But they allowed us out. We'd had a chat to the clerk of the course, and
you've raced the TT a number of times, haven't you?
I've been before, the year before.
Yeah.
Where my passenger that year was Grace Bradbury, and we unfortunately we blew a fuse in the first race. That's all that stopped us.
Yeah.
Having done a lap and a half and we were on the second lap. But the second race on the Wednesday last year we were the fastest newcomer. So we got the fastest newcomer award for the second race. So we were really pleased with that. But Grace later last year told me that she wanted to take a break, and so I was looking for a new passenger. And I knew Anne had been looking around, so we contacted one another and talked about what I wanted to do and what she wanted to do, and the two things sort of married up really. So we decided we'd have a go. So we came up to, I think we went to Mallory a couple of times early on in the year, where it was snowing the first time and it was extremely cold the second time.
Doesn't really show you what you're able to do when it's snowing.
No, not really. But we seemed to gel. We went to Scarborough, and we did Scarborough and wanted to try Scarborough. I'd been to Scarborough numerous times. And she was a bit nervous to start with because it's quite a daunting prospect, Scarborough.
It is.
But she did absolutely brilliantly and really enjoyed it. Now, if you can do Scarborough, you can do the Isle of Man.
What a lot of people don't realise, Dave, I don't know whether you'd agree, is that there's a great deal of the lap of the Isle of Man where you're not doing a great lot.
No, that's very true.
It's just very, very fast. And the danger doesn't go away, but you're not really tested.
No, that's
So
correct.
I think you're right. If you can do Scarborough, a place like Aberdare Park, things like that, if you can do any of that,
yes,
and if you're comfortable with that, well, the Isle of Man isn't as daunting a thing as some people make it for themselves.
No, definitely. I've said, and other people probably wouldn't agree with me, but I don't feel the Isle of Man TT is as dangerous as a lot of people say it is. It hasn't.
If you count the miles that people have done, and obviously the unfortunate fact that a lot of people have died there, and then you count the miles at Aberdare Park, I think Aberdare Park's far more dangerous, and probably Scarborough is there or thereabouts, isn't it?
Yeah. The big thing with the Isle of Man is that you are racing the clock.
Yeah.
And even though I got it wrong this year, I was doing something I knew I shouldn't. I was pushing myself.
Yeah.
And I know better than that. You shouldn't go to the Isle of Man and push. You should let the whole job come to you and race within yourself and the machine.
Thank God you're able to sit here and talk about it. And I know it's an emotional ride when you hurt yourself, isn't it?
It is, yes. Not easy. And I sort of, my first reaction was never that I was going to give up the racing. I have made certain promises to certain people.
We've all made those, Dave.
But my intention is to be back racing when I can. Yeah. And the biggest part of when I can is when I can afford to repair.
Of course, because it's a big financial commitment as well. But do you think that you might get out to club racing next year?
I don't think it'll be next year unless somebody lends me a bike. But I'd like to think that I could have the bike well on its way by the end of next year.
Yeah.
But to give you some idea, the bike needs about £5,000 to £6,000 spending on it to put it back out onto the grid. And I won't do things by halves. It's got to be right. So
it's the only thing keeping you alive, isn't it?
Is.
So
yes.
But Dave, if you're short of a passenger, maybe you'd give me a shot.
Why not?
There you go. You heard it here, folks. Thanks very much, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Dave Saunders there, truly lovely bloke. Whilst we were talking about the TT, of course, everybody will know by the time you hear this show, the news is broken that it seems that we're going back to tuned engines at the TT. I'm very sorry to hear this. I think it's a big mistake. The TT organisers have apparently contacted the top teams. Of course, the top teams are quite happy to go back to tuned engines because a lot of them don't have to pay, and they are top teams after all. But a lot of the rest of the field, working men, it's going to be a bit tougher. And we hear later from Dean Banks, of course, he sold all his tuned engines for very little money because whilst they're not usable at the TT, they haven't been usable in the British, and all our clubs have been following suit and trying to get rid of the tuned parts, and now all that work is to be for nothing. I'm very disappointed. Well, since I've been doing this show 15 weeks now, of course, those of you that follow it closely, you'll all realise that I'm very mildly obsessed with the cost of racing for the ordinary working man. We have got so much more in common than we have in different viewpoints, if you like. It's difficult sometimes to be united, but I think that the move by the TT powers that be to go back to tuned engines and to really accelerate the cost of sidecar racing hasn't helped anybody. It's not even going to help the top teams. I mean, as I say in the interview coming up with Dean, the next big thing is going to be the 120 mile an hour lap. But between 116.5 miles an hour and 120 miles an hour, there is a massive, massive gaping hole that's going to eat up people's lives, and I don't want that. I'm not a sentimental man, not really, but I just don't want that. I mean, everybody wants the record. I know, I understand. I want the record. I'm not likely to get it. But wouldn't it be better to have fun? Wouldn't it be better to go away with a few smiles and a few less funerals? Anyway, listen to this. This is Dean.
So I'm with Dean Banks. Dean, what's happened now?
Well, won the Darley Championship today, finished it off, so all good.
Yeah.
All
And how far clear from second place are you?
5 points.
Oh, so not a massive victory.
No.
Great.
No, but good.
Great.
Yeah,
I mean, and it's been a real campaign, hasn't it? Have you missed any rounds at all?
Yeah, we missed the last round actually, and earlier in the year, because I was chasing signatures at the time, I just did one round and disappeared home.
Yeah.
When it was
so you could have done one more race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally, but you know,
yeah.
hey ho.
Well,
still the same result.
That's a bit of a superstar thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
But congratulations, Dean. I mean, that's great. That's great. And is it the first time you won a championship?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So that's a maiden thing. Will you be going out tonight?
Absolutely. Typical Sunday night over
Sunday
racing,
night
isn't
out,
it?
yeah, absolutely,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's good really. It's nice to support.
But tell me,
local club really as well. So
yeah, and that's it. And Darley Moor, as you know, I'm a great Darley fan, and this is of course the stars of Darley, and there are some stars here as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The Birchells were in the race with you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Obviously, Roy Hanks.
Did you see them at all?
He's a legend. A little.
Yeah, Roy Hanks is here.
Yeah, that's right. Nev Jones is having a comeback meeting. He went really well today.
Yeah,
You know, so yeah.
Taking his time, I think.
Well,
just feeling that his way, yeah.
You know, but doing all the same since he's been out for so long, you know.
Yeah. So what does next year hold for you, Dean? Champ?
My main priority and the reason that I carry on racing sidecars is for the TT.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't carry on racing, if I'm honest, if the TT stopped.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so whatever it takes really to get to the TT. Mm-hmm. Obviously with these engine changes now, I'm going to have to go and get a second job again, so we can put some engines together for TT next year.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the same for everybody.
As you understand it, Dean, we're going back to tuned engines for the TT.
Yeah. And personally, you know, in my opinion, people will not have two engine specs to stay at the British Championship.
They're not able to have two engines set, because you need two sets of engines, not just two engines, right. Is it?
You know, if you go to the TT, you know, you would normally take two good ones and one that you could use if you had to. You know, so you need three for that, and two, maybe three for the British Championship, if that's what you're going to do. And I think now, you know, now the hand's been forced at the TT. I think the only thing they can do is the British Championship is going to have to revert to the same and go back to how it was, and, you know, have them all tuned. I
think you're absolutely right, and it's a terrible shame.
Absolutely, you know, I kind of thought that it was going in a good direction.
Yeah.
You know, cost-wise, for lots of reasons, you know, which I'm sure we need to go into now. But you know, cost, reliability.
But not only that,
everything.
I mean, you know, the next notch on the bedpost at the TT is 120 mile an hour.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't tell me that there aren't going to be some very sorry faces on the way to that 120 mile an hour.
Absolutely.
You know the risks of the TT, and I don't want to dwell on the risks. But if you want to make the next big one, it's a long way. That 3.5 miles an hour
Absolutely.
is a huge step.
Absolutely.
Just half a mile an hour.
I mean,
just
to be
117 is a huge step.
Yeah, that's right.
There's going to be some tragedies on the way.
Them guys, that are running up at the top end there. They're so close to the edge now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because standard engines have got faster.
Of course.
Which is obviously as years go by, the manufacturers are trying to make them faster, so they stack the faster out of crate, and now we're going to make them even faster. Which and I think all is going to happen is the gap will get
between
bigger.
The ordinary runner, between the working
That's
man,
right.
and the superstar.
I spoke to a guy who will always run at the top 3 yesterday. He says, "I'll be honest, I don't give a flying whatever because I don't pay my engine bill."
Yeah.
If it
but that's a different sort of a racer than you and I, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'll have to go truck driving as well as my normal job now. At nights and weekends and whatever.
Yeah.
To find that extra money.
Yeah.
Because I was going into winter thinking, I've got my engines.
Got everything done.
They're done.
And you've actually sold all your tuned bits, haven't you?
That's right, yeah.
And but in all fairness, for you, because your priority is the TT, it's a worse situation than somebody who's only doing the British and only doing or only doing club races.
I was having a conversation yesterday, and really, if I kind of stripped it all back to basics from where me, Dean Banks, is as a rider at the TT, probably for what I've got, what I'm capable of achieving there, the kit that I've got is plenty good enough.
Yeah.
But mentally, as a racer, you think, well, that guy's in front of me, he's got a tuned one.
But
and
you're going to have to have a tuned engine to pull Top Gear all the way up over the top, right?
Yeah.
Over the mountain.
So it's kind of it's difficult, isn't it? So but we'll find a way of doing it as we always have.
Yeah. But anyway, Dean, on a high note, Star of Darley, the champion
Thank
this
you very
year.
much.
Well done, son.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Dean, he's such a nice guy, and you've just heard him say it. He's actually going to have to take a second job because people have changed their minds. They've gone to try and standardise the engines, to cool it all down, which is it's just a no-brainer. It's the right thing to do. And he's sold all his tuned gear. Obviously, some people can use it. The solo racers can use it, so it's worth what it's worth. It's worth whatever you can get for it. But now he's going to have to take a second job to pay for basically the stuff he's just given away. I know he hasn't given them away, but he hasn't ever. You never get back what you've paid. Everybody knows that. It's a sort of a law of nature, isn't it? So I don't know. I think we're going to see quite a bit of controversy in the next 6 months. And come TT next year, I think there will be some teams that will be just super fast out the bag. I think there's a very good chance that the record will go next year. Who knows? Who knows where it's going to end? The British has been fast this year. It's going to be faster next year. That, of course, hasn't been announced yet. The FSRA and the ACU haven't really had time to comment on this. Maybe they haven't even had time to formulate their own thoughts, if there's a plan to be had. I don't know. I'd like to think in some ways that the FSRA would stick to their guns, but if they did, that would mean that any competitors would have to have 2 sets of engines. That would be the 3 tuned ones, the minimum of 3 tuned ones, and 2 or 3 engines for the British that were more stock. But of course, they're not stock either when you're running at the front. So I don't know. I really don't know. Purely from a sporting point of view, from a spectator's point of view, it's going to be better. But from a competitor's point of view, it's going to be a lot more expensive. I don't have to tell the audience of this show that when you tune an engine, it will become more delicate. It has to, because you can't change basic dimensions in the bottom end. The bearings only have a certain width. There's only so much you can do, and when you're putting more power through the bottom end, something's got to give. It's always the way. There's a song in there somewhere. But anyway, the future will unfold, and there's just no saying what's going to happen. But I'm not happy. I don't think it's a good thing. We're going to have that traditional word from our sponsors now, and I'll see the other side of the abyss. Good luck, kids.
I want to talk to you about something that touches us all. It can save your life, but only when it's in good condition and when it fits. Scrubbers Leathers repairs, cleans and reconditions all race leather jackets and trousers. Call Damien on 08452 606 766 or go to scrubbersleathers.co.uk. And Debbie at the Leather Workshop can tailor your leathers to regain that perfect fit. All repairs and even custom badges and decoration. Call Debbie on 01142 687 555 or go to leather-workshop.co.uk. Gift vouchers are available.
Well, like everybody does, I've concentrated on the driver, which is very rude because I'm a passenger myself. So we're going to hear from Ken Edwards now. Ken's not the only passenger that Dean's had in this championship, but I think he's the one that's done the most. And he's a guy I like, and he was the one that was there. So he's the one we spoke to. Here he comes. This is Ken.
A beautiful day at sunny Darley Moor. You can tell I'm lying. It's the Stars of Darley meeting. I'm here with Ken Edwards. Ken, how's it gone for you?
Wet, pretty wet.
It's wet. You've had your practice.
We came yesterday to run an engine in and bed some brakes and whatever, but actually we only went out for one session. It was so wet. Yeah. So far this morning and it stopped raining, so yeah, we've just come in from practice this morning and we're wet.
And it's a fair assumption that it's just going to be wet, isn't it?
Yeah, forecast is wet all day. Yeah, lovely.
But good news in the F2 for you this year. You and Dean Banks. Looks like you've got it sewn up.
Yeah, I think I haven't done all the rounds with Dean. He's had a couple of other passengers on as well, but I think I've done 3 or 4 rounds with him. Yeah. But we're leading the F2s at Darley, and the only person who could catch us hasn't turned up. I think he's got engine troubles. So it looks like.
So it's party on. Fantastic.
Yeah, looks like we may have won this little championship. So
and good. The teaming of you and Ian Drown, how have you done with the F1? It's not quite over yet, is it?
No, we've got another round at Brands next week. I've had a fantastic year with Ian on the F1. We're not going to set the world on fire, we're not going to pretend we do, but we turn up every week, we have a good race every week. Yeah. We generally score a few points every week, and we've crept up in the table, in the championship table.
And where are you sitting at the moment?
We're 8th at the moment.
8th?
Pretty precarious 8th, I have to say. There's 3 really strong lads behind us.
Well, the point is they're behind you.
Well, yeah, but they're within striking distance, and I know.
And at the end of the day, it only matters where you come at the finish of the competition. But at the moment, you're 8th.
It's good, yeah.
And I think that's remarkable. And there's some good guys. Craig's behind you.
Yeah, Craig Chaplow. He's I think 4 points behind. Yeah. I think just behind him is Ricky Stevens, and again Gary Horsepole shortly behind them as well. Yeah. 3 really top riders.
And in all fairness, that when you're 8th, that means there's 7 guys in front of you. Yeah. And 5 of those guys are superstars.
Yeah, well, we are too.
I know, fantastic.
We've got to say, our 8ths come from Ian Drown changed engines last winter to the Kawasaki ZX10s. Fantastic strong engine for a sidecar, beautiful engine.
And the rumour is that a lot of teams are going to go and use that.
Yeah, I think so. But I think Ian's done a really good job with the engineering of that. He's fitted the engine himself. He's made his own sumps, he's made his own dry sump system, everything, and we've had superb reliability. No engine problems like that at all. We had a bit of trouble with looms and stuff like that because we didn't fully understand how the loom was working and whatever, but we've got over those problems now. We've got full power out of the Kawasaki, and it's a superb engine. And
it's a very technical business, the loom, isn't it? It's not just ripping it off the bike and taking the indicators off.
All that stuff's a bit beyond me.
Yeah,
but,
and me too, Ken.
We've had people looking at it, and we got it right now. There's a lot of interest in our bike. When we're not racing, when we're in the paddock and not racing.
There's a lot of people hanging around.
Yeah, we've constantly got a stream of other sidecar guys coming to see what we've done and how they can do theirs. So it's all good stuff. It's a lovely bike.
I think you're gonna find that there's going to be another 3 or 4 guys at least next year with the same motor.
Rumour has it they're all going to have a look at that.
And we're going to have a glut of Suzuki engines for sale.
I think there will be, yeah. Trouble is with the Kawasaki engines, they're relatively new. Not many second-hand ones about.
That's right.
They're very expensive at the minute.
Of course.
5 years' time, maybe.
Yeah. It's always the same, though, isn't it? In 5 years' time, we'll be on to the next crazy engine, the big bill as well. But back to the F2, Ken. How was the TT this year?
Well, it's, as always, the TT, you have your ups and downs. We started the week in an absolutely dreadful fashion with real bad handling problems, which we struggled to overcome. Got it about half right and managed a 9th in the second race. We broke down in the first race, managed a 9th in the second race, which, still considering what we did,
top 10
was pretty good going. Yeah, but you always,
you want to do
as a racer, you always think you can do a bit better, don't you?
No matter what, there's no doubt you always want to do better, and you always can do better.
Yeah.
But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
So that was your result then.
Yeah.
A 9th. But did you have a good time?
Oh, it's fantastic.
And you came away with no injuries?
No injuries for us.
Fantastic.
Superb time. I just love the TT. It's a fantastic event.
What's your sort of best lap time there?
I think it's 107.9 or something.
That's clocking on, isn't it?
It's pretty good going.
Yeah.
And I raced a couple of years ago with Rob Hancock, and we got a 5th and a 7th.
Right.
But the actual lap speeds weren't terrific.
Because the engines weren't the same.
Yeah, but everybody else had reliability problems or whatever, didn't finish.
What do you think about this news that we're going back to tuned engines?
Wow. I've got to be honest, I didn't know anything about it until yesterday. Dean told me about it.
Yeah.
Dean only last week sold the last of his tuned heads and cams.
Yeah.
To find out at the weekend, actually.
He could have sold it for double.
Yeah, and he sold them cheap. Thinking they're worth not much.
Yeah.
And now we've got now is standard engines for next year.
But don't you think that it then puts a competitor, a front runner, in the position where not only do you have to have a tuned engine, which you've already sold, you've got to have a standard one to run in the British.
Well, I can't see that happening. I
can't see it happening, but the work that's been done by the FSRA...
the likes of Conrad Harrison and Gary Bryan are going to run 2 or 3 engines for the British and then a different 2 or 3 engines just for the TT.
Well, if
can they afford to do that?
If that's where the rules are, but if you look at the work that the FSRA have done to try and... All right, I've got to say, they've failed miserably, but they are trying to reduce the costs.
Yeah. I can see where they're coming from, and I don't mind the standard engine thing.
No, as long as everybody's the same.
Yeah.
Racing's racing.
But what I find a bit annoying is you've had 2 years of standard engines, everybody's kind of settled down and got used to it, and suddenly you're back to full-on tuning and lots of money again. And these guys have sold all their stuff.
And, Ken, there is no limit to the amount of money you can spend.
But there never is, even with standard, you can...
Well,
lighter this, lighter that, better this, better that.
There's a different interpretation of the word standard on everybody's lips.
Yeah, but if you've got the money, you'll always spend it on something. Even if it's only having new leathers, you'll spend it. It might not make you go any faster, but you'll spend it. A better paint job, newer fairing, whatever. You'll spend the money.
Right, Ken, you are absolutely
so I don't think it actually makes much difference.
No. But seriously though, Ken, best of luck for the 2 races today.
I think it's just one long race.
Of course it is.
I think it's one 15 lapper.
Of course it is. Yes, that's right. So, the Stars, Darley, of course. It's a great turnout. You've got a full grid. You've got reserves.
Yeah, there's a lot of sidecars. It looks good.
Yeah, but best of luck, mate.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Ken Edwards there, really lovely fella, real gent. We're going to go straight into the interview now with Eddie Nelson, and he's got some interesting things to say. Here we go.
I think we've probably run 1 or 2 too many meetings.
Right.
And of course it hasn't helped having bad weather at 1, 2, 3, like today, 4 meetings.
At crucial moments, the weather plays a big part on how many people get through the door, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, on 15th of September, for instance, because it was raining in or forecast heavy rain all day.
Yeah.
The entry didn't turn up, and we had 50 spectators through the gate. That was it.
Yeah, and so of course you're on a loser, aren't you?
Yeah, and we rely on spectators.
Yes.
To make the money up,
which is different to every other club, which is just every other club's just a paying.
They pay for the circuit.
Yeah,
but we need the entries from the spectators to maintain the circuit.
Yes, to buy up the balance of the meeting.
Yeah.
But in general, a good season.
Yeah, I mean the racing's been very exciting at times. Even when it's been low grids.
I've come here. This is the fourth time I've been here this year, and every meeting for me has been a real entertaining, proper Darley Moor meeting.
Yeah, as you know, I sit in an office, so I don't see a lot of the racing, but Glyn Taylor, the club commentator, will always come at the end of the day and say, hey, there's been some cracking races again.
Yeah.
And that's what we like to hear.
And
obviously it's nice when our spectators turn around to us and say, it's been a great season.
But I think from my point of view, certainly, looking from the outside in, this has been a very good season for Darley Moor, and it's like there's a little bit of a resurgence going on.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as far as Darley goes, as you know, we do this a lot of CTC courses here for the ACU, and they've been very busy. I mean, we've run 3 this year where we've had over 30 attending the CTC course.
And that's got to be good for everybody.
Well, it's more bums on seats for next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is down to people coming back into the sport and everything else, but that's what it's all about.
But this meeting is special because this is the high spot of the year. This is the Stars of Darley, and you've got a lot of famous people here today. And a lot of money on the paddock that isn't normally here. There's a couple of Bentleys, and I think there's a Rolls Royce knocking around.
Yeah, there's a lot of sponsors here, and
we've got the Birchells, of course. And
then there's a lot of very good riders, as you so rightly say. We've got the
Mr. McGuinness is here, isn't he?
We've got the Honda team here. We've got Richard Cooper here, and as you say, we've got Birchells, Hankses, and people like Howard Baker and so on. So yes, it's been a very good meeting for us.
Your latest sidecar champion, Mr. Banks.
Yeah, Dean Banks. I mean, he was only going to ever be outdone this year by Dave Holden had he won it. Unfortunately, Dave's the runner-up by 2 points. But he has promised that come what may, he will be back next year because he has to win the Darley Moor Championship now.
He's got to come back. Now tell me, just briefly, Eddie, if you can, there's going to be a new high spot, isn't there, next year?
Well, there's going to be several new high spots next year.
Of course, but you know what I'm talking about.
Well, no, not really. I don't think that there's going to be that big changes.
No, I know it's not a big change, but the Thunder Sprint's going to be a new thing, isn't it?
Well, the Thunder Sprint is new to us in as much as it's new to Darley Moor, but it's not new to the club. I mean, we, the club, have been running the Thunder Sprint for Frank Melling all the time. It's at Northwich, and we've thoroughly enjoyed doing it. And Frank came along and asked if it was possible for him to bring his Thunder Sprint to Darley, and we talked about it and said yes, all right, we'll give it a go.
But I think it's going to be a great thing for Darley Moor.
I mean, people have been ringing me up from the council and from the local newspapers and everything, asking, how many spectators do you think you might get, and all this, that, and the other. And I'm saying, well, I'm looking at something like 25,000 as a minimum.
That's fantastic. And, Eddie, that must be the biggest day that Darley Moor has ever seen.
Yeah, of course, Thunder Sprint is a cheap event for spectators. I mean, but yes, we are selling tickets even as we speak, so it's looking good. The trade stands, I know that when I was talking to Frank earlier in the day, that trade stands are selling very, very well.
Because it's a real event, isn't it? There's lots to do for a family.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and even if you don't like motorbike racing, all you like is to come and do play on the big wheel or whatever. There'll be a fairground for you and so on. So there'll be plenty to do.
It really is a great achievement. achievement. Well done, Eddie. I mean, I can't tell you. But let me ask you an off-topic question as I've got you, and as you're a man with the ACU, what do you think about this business with the engines for the TT from sidecars?
I'm not sure. I mean, I have to say that Paul Phillips maintains that he's contacted all the leading sidecar teams, and that's what they want. I don't know. I have my own thoughts on it, which will remain my thoughts, because I have to be diplomatic about it because of my job.
I know, but isn't it true that the ACU, with of course the FSRA, the ACU, we're trying to work to a cheaper way of going racing for Formula 2, which was supposed to be for the working man.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the ACU are trying, but obviously for the TT, the promoters at the TT don't think it's a spectacle, and the spectacle is something that they always wanted, of course.
Yeah, but don't you feel that it's possibly going to become so expensive that ordinary people won't be able to go, and maybe their grid will be depleted through that?
I think that could possibly happen. Everybody says it won't, because riders will not be spending the fortunes on engine tuning and stuff that they have in the past. And I'm not convinced.
Neither am I, Eddie. And let's leave it at that.
You know, and that's as much as I can say about it, really.
I appreciate your time, Eddie. Thanks very much for talking to us today.
It's a pleasure. Look forward to meeting with you again next year.
Eddie Nelson there, great guy. Very, very straight talker. I was shocked that he pulled his punches so much, but I think it's still, at that point over the weekend, it's still such new news that a lot of people don't know what to say. Well, we've got a final, almost bonus interview now with my old mate, Chris Lake. Snake Eyes Racing, a lot of you will know him. He's a man who's done TTs and World Championships. And I just happened to run into him, and this is Chris.
So, I've just run into my old mate Chris Lake. Chris, it's raining, it's terrible. What do you think of Darley Moor today?
Horrible, absolutely horrible.
But seriously, you've been involved with sidecar racing for a long time. How did you get into this malarkey?
Well, I've always had motorbikes, and the first bike I ever had on the road legally was a 650 with a sidecar, because you could then ride them with L plates.
On L plates, I remember that, yes.
Yeah, so I had my bike on L plates, and I had it for a couple of years till I passed my test, and then I sort of drifted away from them. And I got involved, really. It was a discussion when I was a late teenager and never really did anything about it. But I got involved with it after being sat on the wall at the TT one year, just talking to a friend of mine casually. I said, you know, we really ought to have a go at this.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, we owned one.
Really? Really? And what was that friend called?
That was Ray Walker. A friend of mine's father, who, as I say, we went to watch the TT. He raced for a number of years, did the TT a few times. We had a parting of the ways long before then, but yeah, it was something that got under my skin, and I just had to have one.
Yeah. So what happened then? What happened next?
After I stopped riding with Spud, I sort of didn't really know what to do, and ended up riding with Steve Williamson on the Formula 1, which was an interesting thing after an F2, because everyone said, yeah, it's so easy to passenger them, which the actual physical job of passengering is easier, but the just brute power of them just drains all your strength.
Hanging on to the thing really does wear you out, doesn't it?
Very, very quickly.
And you're the same sort of height as me, and you can't reach forward on the bike so well, can you?
No, the F1s are so much bigger physically across the bike, and you're more sort of detached from the driver, if you like.
I think so.
And if you want to tap him to stop you or anything like that,
it's hard to tap the man. If you're in a left-hander, you can't tap him, can you?
No, it's a very long way away. You've got to make sure you've got a straight, so you've got a long enough bit to climb up to grab hold of him.
Yeah.
I rode with him for a few years. Had my first experience at the TT with Nigel Smith, which I did once or twice with him, which was a fantastic introduction to the TT, running sort of in the midfield sort of speed time. Yeah, first lap of that, I hated it. I wanted to go home. I'd had enough. That was it. Scared me to death.
Well, that's it, but you can't judge anything on the first time, can you?
No, I had Sue Eccles came over and had a chat with her, and we just went driving round in Nigel Smith's little sports car all day on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you know, she pointed out lots of things to me that I hadn't seen, and all of a sudden Monday it was a different kettle of fish, and it just got better and better.
Yeah. And of course you're under pressure the first time out. You're under pressure. You're nervous. You're trying to do your best for your driver. And it's never going to be as nice as when you've found yourself and when you're feeling a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is when, you know, obviously I'd ridden with Nigel before on short circuits, and I'd known Nigel for a while. But it is one of those things you don't want to let him down.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that when we came, just as you go down Bray Hill, just down towards, just at the bottom of the hill, there's a big bump on the left-hand side, and I had my mouth open and I cracked my jaw and took one of my crowns straight off. So I then had to drive around with it for the next 2 laps, trying not to swallow it and trying not to spit it out.
Fantastic. But I mean, it's that sort of thing that then puts the mark in your mind that bump is there.
It certainly is. I mean, the most for motorcyclists as opposed to sidecar people, they don't realise is every single bend that you come up to on the TT circuit is blind, because you're so close to the ground.
That's
and
right.
Because of the undulations in the circuit.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to take all your markings from posts on the walls, plants by the thing.
Yeah.
You know, all
You're
sorts of
absolutely
things
right.
like that.
On a solo, you're sitting higher than a lot of cars, and so you actually have a better view than a lot of cars, even though when you start to crack along a little bit, you're committed and you can only really be in one place on the road, or you're getting it wrong.
That's right. Yeah, it takes a long time to really get comfortable with going around there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I did 2 years with Nigel, then I did a couple of years with Glyn Jones.
Yeah.
Up the other end of the field, the sharp end.
At the sharp end, because that's your famous period, really, with Glyn, isn't it?
Yeah, it's when I did my best, and you know, more people got to know what was going on, and you get to see a lot more.
What was your best lap, Chris?
20 minutes 40 seconds.
And what speed is that?
It's about just short of 110. It's 109 point something.
So I mean, you are, as you say, getting towards the very sharp end there.
Yeah, that was the last lap of the last race of the second week. Because all I said to Glyn is all I want to see for the whole of this fortnight. Because we'd just been on the year before and all through practice week, 21 minutes 02, 03, 04.
Yeah.
I said to Glyn all I wanted to see was one lap under 21 minutes.
Yeah.
And we did 20:59, 20:46 and 20:40.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
I went home happy boy.
Brilliant. And what year was that?
2007.
Right. But Glyn's been back, hasn't he?
Glyn's been back since then. He was due to go 2008, but I'd stopped riding by then because of my back. 2008 he was due to go back and then didn't. Me and him ended up working instead up on the farm. 2012 he definitely went, because he had a bit of an off. But yeah, right. he's going quicker and quicker every time he goes out.
Yeah, but he hasn't gone this year though, has he?
No, he hasn't done. He hasn't ridden this year at all.
All right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he hasn't done any riding at all.
So what about you? Are you planning to come back?
Never say never.
Good lad.
You know, obviously following the Mallory accident.
Because you were driving, weren't you?
I was, decided to have a go at this. Well, was
the other end.
Persuaded into the driving. Had a couple of seasons of it. You know, had the last season broken up with surgery on my hand.
Unrelated.
Unrelated, yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously maybe had a big accident, and I suppose I'm not really, my shoulder and that side of my right side's not quite as it should be. But no, never say never.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there, yeah.
You're a lot fitter than you were the last time I saw you, even.
I seem to be working. My shoulder seems to work a bit better. So yeah, I mean, I've been out on my road bikes a little bit this year.
Ideal.
But other than that, I've just been. This is the first time I've stood on a racetrack.
Have you got a prediction for the winner of the Stars of Darley sidecar race today?
Well, I would like to see Roy win.
Yeah.
As always.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of the sort of masters of the game, really. I'd like to see Roy win, but to be honest, if all goes according to plans, I think he'll be following Ben Birchall.
Right, of course. Yeah.
I would think.
And how do you see Dean Banks coming?
Dean's always a good goer here.
He comes here a lot, so familiarity makes a big difference at Darley Moor. I hope to see him in the top 5.
I would love to see him up there because he deserves it, because he is a regular here,
and he works of course hard. He's won the F2 championship, but for all no competition for him here. The man that's running in second place hasn't been able to come through engine trouble, so he's actually won the F2, and congratulations to Dean for that.
Fantastic. I hadn't actually had a look yet in the point series, but that's brilliant.
Yeah.
As I say, he comes here a lot. He's been coming here a lot.
And he's a TT regular, isn't he?
And he's a top guy.
Yeah, top guy. Well, thanks for that, Chris, and we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Well, I do hope so.
Chris Lake, and a top man himself. He really is such a lovely bloke. I'm going to play us all out with another song, but before I do that, I want to remind you of my email address. Please get in touch with me if you've got any thoughts about these tuned engines. If you've got any thoughts of a way we can make sidecar racing cheaper for ordinary people, not for the superstars. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to change the top of the tree. I just want to make it cheaper for club racers to just get out there and boogie. So why don't you email me back? Give me your thoughts. Get on the show. Get involved. Next weekend, I'm down at Brands Hatch for the last round of the F1. And that's then going to be the last race I'm going to go to this year. There's no plum pudding, at least as far as I know, with the Mallory mess rumbling on. I can't believe we've come to the end of the 15th show. Till next week, stay safe. I'll see you later, kids. Bye-bye.
Wow. What a show that was. Remember, if you or someone you know would make a good interview, get a hold of Slow Phil Direct on 077 307 849 75 or email the man slowphil@steveenglish.com. Thanks for listening. I'm off to cool down and polish the bike.